This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Thursday, April 17th, 2025. And I've got the lovely Joe Maring here. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Hi, Miriam. I'm doing good. It's been years since I joined you on here, so it's fun to be back and do another one finally.
You know, I noticed that, which is kind of the reason I got you on. I was like, I haven't had Joe in a really long time. We need to get Joe back on because you've been writing about some pretty critical stuff lately. So I want to go over that with you as well. But I do want to go over the whole Oppo thing with you because I've had the phone for a while now. And last week, I just unboxed it on the show, kind of like pseudo unboxes. I actually didn't break any of the wrappers because I needed to do a real video. But sure. I did like talk about it, but not with any kind of first impressions because, you know, how can you talk about something that's still fresh out of the box? So, yeah, I want to talk about that. There's a whole bunch of Chinese phone news. There's a bunch of upcoming devices. There's some leaks and rumors. So what are your thoughts, since you don't have one, but looking, you know, through the glass of your screen at the Find X8 Ultra? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, it looks phenomenal. Like the last Oppo phone that I used was the X8 and the X8 Pro. So this is obviously just better version of those phones essentially. And the zoom capabilities that I've seen from some of the test photos from just various sites publishing hands-on stuff, it looks unreal for some of the shots people are able to get. And I know you shared some photos that I saw from the zoom tests you did, and it looks just insane. So like in person, is it as impressive as it looks online for some of those zoom shots?
That's a good question. I think you're right. I mean, it is, but it is with a big kind of asterisk. You played with the Find X8 Pro, and I did too.
Yeah.
So I think you have a really good point of reference. Basically, you know, to use a Final Tap analogy, it's like the Find X8 Pro, but crank it up to 11. Because the big difference is the 1-inch main sensor that immediately gives you that incredibly shallow depth of field. So you shoot anything. Like I was shooting a car this weekend. I can't talk about it yet. I was away in North Carolina for a thing, and I shot an EV that I'm going to be writing about. And I decided, hey, for this entire content capture, like I'm doing this now. This is part of the job. I'm taking a phone that is fresh out of the box and that has on paper, a very good camera. And I do an entire something for work with it, which is really ballsy. So I did all of MWC with the Xiaomi 15. All of it. Anything I created for content there was done with that phone, and I don't regret it. And I'm not regretting using the Find X8 Ultra for this car capture, because the thing that I immediately noticed is that I shoot most of my photos for cars at 2x. You know, you don't have that wide angle distortion. If you take a photo of a car and you want to more or less fill the frame, not, get a bit of room around it, but fill the frame at 1x, you're going to see a car that's looks a little cartoonish, right? It's a little distorted. It's like doing a selfie, your nose gets bigger, even though this is not the ultra wide. So I always go pull back physically and shoot at 2x. And I noticed I was getting bokeh at 2x on shooting a car from 10 feet away. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's really impressive.
So that immediately makes it look DSLR-ish. Like you feel like you're using a pro camera. So the 1-inch sensor, and here's the best part, Joe. At 2x, you still have 1.6 micron pixels to play with.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Because at your 1x, you have 3.2 micron pixels to play with.
Ridiculous.
So, and I'm not shooting in low light, so it doesn't matter, right? So the detail and the clarity, and also you don't have the edge of the lens issues to deal with because you're cropping the sensor. So it's like, Now, that's the first thing I noticed. Now, the zoom, you remember what the zoom was like on the X8 Pro. It was like kind of like mind-blowing. Like that little atom bomb went off in our heads when we all started using it. And you get that on the OnePlus 13 as well. But so that, I'm kind of over that now. I'm kind of like starting to get more critical about things. And it's basically the same, but less noise and more detail because the sensors are bigger.
Right.
And then the asterisk I was mentioning is the big kind of elephant in the room, and it's AI. So yes, it does. I've done 60x photos with that phone, and I know what I'm taking a photo of, so I know what it's supposed to look like. And wow, I don't think I've ever taken 60x photos that good before, but you can see it's recreating the scene with AI at that point.
Sure.
Like it is repainting the scene. And so if you shoot 2 or 3 times in a row, like say you put the phone on a tripod, you don't move, and you shoot 3 or 4 times in a row at 60x, you get 3 or 4 different interpretations of reality.
Right.
Now, overall, from a distance on a phone screen, they look great. But if you start peeking and you know what you're taking a photo of, you're like, oh, there's that balcony on that building. I don't think that really exists. I think that's more of a porch, like things like that, right?
I know. I've done that on the OnePlus 13 and like other phones too, where you do those really zoomed in shots of like 30, 50, whatever. And like you said, like they can look passable at times, but then for some of them, you zoom in just a little bit, and it's really apparent that it's just like you said, AI recreation. So it seems like that's still happening, but I mean, it's at least somewhat encouraging that that's maybe getting better.
You can turn it off, and I have to say that it's hard to tell whether having a Snapdragon 8 Elite versus Dimensity 9400 makes any difference here, because the algorithms look like they're the same. Like if I take a photo with that phone, I haven't done the side-by-side with the 8 Pro yet, but I don't think you're going to notice much in terms of the way the AI is doing its work, right? Like, so I think for this, you can turn it off. I haven't tried turning it off to see how much worse it is. I don't really feel like I should do that. I think most people are going to shoot with this on. So, but that's the big difference between that and the X7 Ultra last year. It didn't have that AI zooming capability, and it would start falling apart at 20x. Like it would be like just like a Samsung phone. Like,
sure,
you zoom past 20 and it starts looking chunky and JPEGy, and because you just don't have enough pixels, and it's trying its best to interpolate. And super res zoom on the Pixel does that too, where it uses the motion of the camera to create subpixels, and all that is great. Don't get me wrong. Like we've done great, like we're way past the let's just crop the image and go nuts, or even let's crop and interpolate some subpixels. We're like doing all kinds of crap, but AI is just basically repainting the photo, right? And as long as you're okay with that, and that also applies to the phones that all of you can buy in the US and Canada, the OnePlus 13. If you're okay with that, then you're gonna get some great results.
Yeah, and like you said, you can always turn it off if that bothers you, which I get for some people not wanting that AI interpretation, because then it brings in the whole conversation of, is this a photo if you're still having AI
is it a photo
stuff?
To start with now, with like all the ML machine learning stuff that we've been using that's not generative. The problem is this is generative, right?
Right.
I got the phone here. I'm going to show it in more detail for the Patreons. As you can see, this is slightly pink. It's like a pearlescent pink. And check this out, Joe. The sides are rose gold on this. It's hard. It's very subtle, but yeah. And you see that button there? That's not the alert slider. That's an action button now.
Oh, right.
Which is annoying because it's no longer.
A fan?
You can't tell by touching in your pocket what mode it's in. You actually have to activate it because it gives you vibration feedback. So until you activate it, you don't know what mode you're in. The good news is if you press it once, it'll tell you. I'm trying to remember how it works, but it'll give you feedback on what mode you're in before you switch.
Gotcha.
But sliders, they're a thing. Like,
I get the appeal of being able to tell just by feel in your pocket if you know those positions, if it's muted or if it's ringed, but I'm team programmable button just because on the older iPhones and the OnePlus 13 and all the OnePlus phones before that, like, my slider just stays in the silent position 99% of the time.
So it doesn't really matter.
No, like, I like that option of if you want to switch it to whatever else to make it more useful. Like,
it's a nice feature that we lost, and it's going away. It's also gone on the X8S series that we're going to talk about in a second, from what I understand. And it's also looks like from all the renders we're getting, and we'll talk about this as well, the OnePlus 13T, which is that mini phone that they're coming out with. So I guess all of Oppo land, OnePlus land, probably Realme, if they add the key themselves, it will go to a button, not a slider. Well, Realme never had the slider. But the bottom line is this phone is bonkers, and it's China only, and so you have to jump through a few hoops to make everything work. Everything on mine is working so far. The only two things I haven't gotten to work, and I don't think I can change them. I mean, not change them to global ROM Oppo, is the lack of Discover, on the side here, right? There is also the keyword that I'm not going to repeat for you listening right now for triggering the assistant on Android. When your phone is down on the table and you want to talk with Gemini or whatever, that keyword is not working. It's got its own right now assistant and I can't seem to turn it off. I've looked into how can I set that back to default. Like I've managed to set back the Google Pay to default. I've managed to set back like Android Auto is working. Like everything is working, but somehow
is it just like Oppo's own assistant?
Yeah, they have their own assistant, and somehow there is no setting anywhere in the settings for me to say use the Google Assistant keyword instead of the. So the only way I can trigger it right now is if I don't like to do this because I'm old school, so my power button is my power button. Thank you very much. Sure. But I could change that setting so that the power button activates the assistant and Gemini, and that works. That I can get that to work. I could also program that stupid button to do it. So but I do honestly feel like having the option to switch between modes every now and then can be handy. So I've left it at default. It's very much like they've copied the iPhone UI for that. There's so much. It's interesting because the Oppo ROM that I have in here in this phone, for those of you watching, I'm still brandishing it, is slightly different than the Color OS ROM that we're used to on global phones. It really is trying to imitate the iPhone more. I'll give you an example, and I need to double check if the latest software update on my 8 Pro is doing this. But when you swipe a notification now to the left, like you swipe left on the screen on a notification, it now gives you that 3 little icons, one to kind of silence the notification, one to delete it, kind of like what the iPhone does. And I don't remember seeing that on the Find X8 Pro. So I'm wondering
I didn't either.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they added that, and I didn't see. I have to check my Find X8 Pro. It's not doing it on my Find N5. So, and that seems like a very Chinese thing. Of course, the lack of Discover makes perfect sense. What else is there that makes perfect sense? There's other stuff that they're doing, like in the control center or whatever. Well, it's called control center on iPhone.
I say, is it a split design in there?
You can have the music player, instead of appearing at the bottom, appears as a tile, like a square tile, just like the iPhone.
Right. I think the OnePlus 13,
does that do that too?
Quick settings are set up like that too.
Yeah. Well, so you can choose between splitting the quick settings and notifications and not. That at least is still an option on this phone. I don't think that's going to last, to be honest with you. My biggest fear right now about Android going forward with 16 is that Google's going to pull that from underneath us, or that already Xiaomi's doing that. You don't have the option on Xiaomi phones anymore. You used to. And starting with HyperOS 1, they got rid of it. Anyway, those are minor things. Carrier band support's been great. I've used it with AT&T, T-Mobile, TELUS in Canada. Now, Verizon, you're SOL, right? But of course, AT&T complains, sends me a text saying, this phone is not compatible with our network. But frankly, I haven't noticed any issues. It does have LTE, so I don't see what their complaint is. It doesn't have Wi-Fi calling. That's very common on a lot of even global Chinese phones. They just Wi-Fi calling is just gone, and that's a pain for some of you, I know. But so don't buy this if you're mission critical. I think if you have a very set way of life where you work from work and home at home, and you know where you are, and you know that you've tested Chinese phones and they work with your carrier in those locations, and that you don't have to worry about Wi-Fi calling, etc., and most likely you're on T-Mobile or an affiliate of T-Mobile like Mint or Fi, you're probably fine. But I wouldn't say, I don't think the camera justifies it. I think, frankly, you'd be better off saving a bit of money and buying a Find X8 Pro and getting more of that functionality and global ROM and all that. You still won't get Wi-Fi calling. So maybe a OnePlus 13, right? You're, again, very close to Find X8 Pro there. Yeah, so that's my take on this. It's by the way, there's a fifth camera. I don't know if you see it. It's
Oh, there is?
right there.
Oh yeah. Is it
It's
like
tiny.
a macro
It's
or
a spectral camera. So
Ah.
it gives the phone a baseline of what colors are in the shot. And so it can
Interesting.
compare and basically give you better white balance. It's probably like a 0.5 megapixel. Like it doesn't have to be more than, probably VGA quality for that.
Sure. Have you noticed, do you think you've noticed any benefit
honestly,
of that?
like it also has the laser autofocus module, like you see on the Find X8 Pro if you look carefully. Like it's and honestly, the thing that makes this phone incredible compared to last year's the Find X7 Ultra, and if you look here, is it's not very thick. It's 7.8 millimeters thick, which is thinner than a Galaxy and an iPhone Pro, but and even the camera bump isn't too pronounced. So this phone doesn't feel like a monster in your hand, unlike, it's like last year's X7 Ultra or the Xiaomi 14 Pro. I don't know. I haven't played with the 15 Pro long enough to know, but I mean, I admire that. And
Sure.
I think some people are complaining about that, saying, well, the reason we buy the Vivo X200 Ultra, which is coming, or the 100 Ultra last year, or if the reason I buy the Xiaomi Ultra is because it's the best and it's like there's no compromise. I don't care about thickness. This has a 6100 milliamp hour battery in it, and you can't kill it. Like I've gone like that day I shot that car, by the end of the day I was at 45%, and I shot in the camera all freaking day long.
That's really impressive.
It's like I didn't care. It was like I'm a honey badger. Battery life, what's that?
Right.
100 watt charging, of course, 50 watt wireless, 8 Elite. It's got, this model has 16 gigs of RAM or maybe 24, I can't remember. 1 terabyte of storage. Like, it's just like.
Yeah, nothing to complain about. And that's encouraging to hear that it doesn't feel like a tank. Because I mean, I've been using the S24 Ultra just to go back to that for a little bit.
Oh.
Or S25
Retro,
Ultra, sorry,
my
not the
friend.
24 Ultra, my bad. And like something about this, the design is just, it's so boxy. It feels so big for what you actually get out of it. And I'm sure the Ultra is still, like, it's obviously still a big phone, but I found even using like the 8 Pro, the Oppo Find 8 Pro doesn't feel as chunky as like the S25
sleek.
Ultra does.
This is definitely less sleek than the X8 Pro or OnePlus 13 because also they have that 2.5D glass front and back, which makes the rails look even thinner than they are. So it's not necessarily much thinner, than this Ultra. These two phones, the Pro from Oppo and the 13 from OnePlus, but they're a little it's in hand they feel a little thinner because that 2.5D. Also, this compared to the Oppo Find X8 Pro has a Quad HD display, where the Find X8 Pro has a 1220p display. So,
nice.
I'm running it at 1080p. I don't care. I'm running at high refresh, but at
negligible.
1080p because my eyes are not good enough for that. And maybe my battery life that's influencing it a bit. But the bottom line is, look, it's solid. Like the camera, the ultra wide's really great too. That's the other thing that's,
nice.
like when you do car shots, when I do interior shots, I need an ultra wide. Is it wide enough? That is another discussion. I feel that as a car person that has to photograph cars, what I'm finding very annoying as a phone reviewer as well, in the phone world is there's a very big disparity in terms of viewing angle on what they call 0.5. Like, so some cameras at 113 degrees, some at 120, some at 125. And 125 to 113, like you're literally losing the rear view mirrors in your shot if you're taking a shot from the back seat, like of the center stack. Like people don't understand that. So this is kind of average, just 120, I think. So it's like Pixel, Samsung-like, but I've seen better. I have that... what's that crazy phone? The Nubia Z70 Ultra, the Starry Night Van Gogh edition. I have it here. And that thing is interesting because the main camera is a 35 millimeter. So it's actually a 1.4x, essentially, main camera. And the ultra wide is 0.4. So it starts at 0.4. The ultra wide is in charge of taking photos from 0.4 to 1.4. And then the main sensor, which has variable aperture, that big red one, takes over. And then you've got a 2.7x they're 350 megapixel sensors, and the third one is a 2.7x telephoto periscope, and it takes good photos, and it does AI zoom as well, like the like repainting the scene kind of deal. It does an okay job. It's the same size as a RedMagic 10. Like it's the same screen as a RedMagic 10, 144 hertz with the under display. You can see it there. It's trying to like Face ID me, but if I do Face ID on it, you'll see that now the screen doesn't have the camera, and you can't really tell. It's very nice.
Yeah, it looks good.
Is it good for selfies? It's the nice thing about it, the pixels are 2 microns or the front-facing camera, so it's like 12 megapixels, but they're massive pixels. So I think that's how it manages to work better through the screen, because it loses a ton of light through that screen.
Sure. Would you say better than like a Z
Way
Fold
better than the Samsung
under display
stuff.
camera?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
No, the thing about Nubia, I've got to give them credit. They've been doing this for 6 years now, the under display camera. So it's the 6th generation. It's finally getting good enough now. I would still not want it as your main like selfie sensor, but as a second sensor for like video conferencing and stuff, fine. It doesn't give you that weird halo and that greasiness that you used to have.
Yeah.
The descreening, that's by the way, the name. The descreening algorithm that removes the pixel grid from in front of this camera is using, I think, a lot of AI now, which, and for that, as you imagine, machine learning, right? This is not Gen AI. This is like purely algorithmic. It's very good at recognizing patterns and removing them, right? So that's actually, I think, this is where the hardware is not necessarily evolving that fast, but the software and the processing that we can throw at the software makes it possible to eliminate, faults. I think that's also why our cameras are able to detect and tell us, "Hey, clean your lens," right? Like it's
right.
Your
phone is disgusting. Please clean it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't think I was going to talk about this phone, but then I realized, wait, I have it in my pocket right now, and I'm testing it kind of side by side, because the problem is that they don't give you an X equivalent. So when you go in the camera interface, let me actually show you guys. It's kind of wonky because it says 18 millimeters, 35 millimeters, 85. So you have no idea what that means.
There's no option to switch it to like a...
Well, if you tap on the 18, it switches to 24. So now I have a 1X using the ultra wide. And if you tap on the 35, it switches to 50, which is 2X on a regular phone. And then if you tap on 85, it gives you 140. And then I think it switches to 70 and 85. So it's very weird.
Interesting.
Like if you're taking photos side by side with another phone and you're trying to get the same shot without physically moving yourself, you literally have to kind of play with the zoom slider until it looks right. Because what their X's, they call their X's, doesn't match the reality of the X's on other phones, because they don't give you the X's. They just give you the millimeters.
Right. Which is, because I mean, some phones, I think the OnePlus 13 does it. And I know the Oppo Find X8 Pro does it, where if you... it shows the X range by default, but if you tap those, it'll briefly switch to the millimeter range. But I've never seen a phone where it just exclusively shows the millimeter range like that. Yeah,
that's what this does. And it actually is the reverse. It briefly shows you the X measurement, but then you're like, I'm lost. No, I didn't see it. Now I don't know what I'm at. And also, like, say you're shooting at 1X equivalent, you're now shooting with the ultra wide. So
that's bizarre.
I mean, look, I don't shoot at 1X much, so I get it. Like 1.4 is nice. It gives you 35 millimeters, kind of what a normal camera will do. So it's not bad. But like if you're used to shooting normal everyday phones, like even the Ultra here, the Find X8 Ultra, it's like, I don't know what to do with this. So I think they just need to revamp the UI a little bit. Give people options to, like, I think they should have multiple buttons, and regardless, like, you don't have to know which lens it's using. It should give you equivalency. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That would make more sense.
For sure.
And that way, but maybe highlight the ones, like, have the different zoom button like on a Samsung, but highlight the ones that mark the actual base of each camera, right?
Right.
So I think that's kind of where I'm at with this phone. Anyway, let's talk about, this is like, far from an exhaustive. This is my first impressions on an Oppo, like far from an exhaustive review. Obviously it's a flagship. Everything on it works really great. It's super fast, all that. Everything you're used to on a OnePlus 13 is there pretty much. Just crazier cameras. And that 1-inch sensor is the one that surprised me the most. I've used them before on other phones, but I've never really noticed the creaminess of the bokeh shooting at 2x on cars and stuff like that before. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. And no variable aperture on this one. I think it's f of 1.8. So, All right, then we have the Find X8S and X8S Plus that are out. I'm not going to go much into detail. These are China only. They're Dimensity 9400 Plus. The X8S is a small phone, small to today's standard, 6.3-inch display. So we think Xiaomi 15, think iPhone 16 Pro, iPhone 16, that kind of size. Or think Pixel 9 Pro, non-XL. That's the size of phone you're looking at. So that's not really small, but they call it small. Of course, it has very little bezel, so it's probably physically a little smaller. But it's basically a flagship like the Find X8 non-Pro from the fall that we got globally, but shrunken down. And then the X8S Plus is a carbon copy of the X8 non-Pro from the fall with slight cosmetic tweaks, but under the hood is the same chassis, same button placement, same display, same battery, same everything, but 9400 plus. And that's probably also why we wouldn't get it. If anything, we might get the Mini as a global phone or the Ultra, but what are your take on this? What are your take on Oppo's strategy here? Like, we're going to talk about OnePlus in a minute, and I'm worried, especially in the context of the economy right now, what's going to happen with Oppo, like pulling so many phones to just being China only now. Like the N5 really, even though technically it's available in Singapore and Hong Kong and Malaysia and whatever, like, Well,
it seems especially with phones like this that are kind of just new variants of the existing 8 and 8 Pro, like these aren't brand new, like next generation devices. Like these are kind of very iterative, like they have a purpose with the new chipset and stuff, but with that, I don't know if niche is the right word, but with that small of a release, there was probably already not a lot of reason to do a big global launch. And then you factor in the tariff situation and you already have these devices that you probably weren't planning for a massive release because they are by nature a smaller release. And then you factor in everything going on with tariffs right now. And it feels like that almost kills any chance for any global release plans when you factor in, like I said, the nature of the phones themselves and having so many SKUs and variants, and then you factor tariffs on top of that, and it seems like it's impossible to see a situation where a phone like that X8S and the X8S Plus, like where Oppo sees enough value in those types of phones to
I think there are two things.
Put in the effort and eat the cost of the increased tariffs to release that type of device in a more increased scale.
I think you're right. I think there are two things at play here. There is the tariffs which have been added since we talked about the X8 and X8 Pro back in the fall, right? That's a whole new mess. But I think beyond that, I think Oppo is also realizing that when they bring in, like when they brought in the OnePlus Open, right? It's just, it's Oppo bringing it in, really. Even OnePlus is slightly separate, but let's be real, right? Pete Lau is pulling the strings here. So when they brought it in, they took a gamble and it was very well received by us, but did it sell? Probably not, right? That's the reality. And so they have to look at their bottom line. And that's probably why the Find N5, which technically came around before the tariffs, is only being sold in very few markets.
Sure.
Now for this Find X8 Ultra and X8S series, I get why they wouldn't, because of the current situation on top of that. But I think the reason they kept them to themselves is because the X8S Plus is essentially an X8 from last time, like 6.6-inch screen. It's the smaller of the two from last time, but with a new chip. So what's the point of that? The smaller phone, the X8S non-Plus, is potentially a candidate for the global markets because some people want smaller phones. But we've all learned, and Asus is a poster child for that. They made the best ever compact phone that we've ever had in Android land for its time. And guess what? Nobody bought it. So why bother, right? Yeah. So that's kind of where I think that's happening too, right? And, that brings us actually a very good segue into OnePlus, because OnePlus has a small phone coming. It has the OnePlus 13T, and that is basically and also Vivo has an X200S coming. that are all three of them are essentially, former BBK group sharing their tech, because these phones, if you look at their displays and their bezel, they're identical. And so they are essentially sharing the same display and wrapping a tiny, to today's standard phone around these displays. So what's your take on this? Like, do you think there's a world in which, if say OnePlus had brought the Open 2 here, the N5 as the Open 2, is there room for them, maybe for Oppo to keep their small phone to China, but for OnePlus to release a global 13T, not US market 13T, but global 13T?
The selfish part of me wants to think so, just because, I'm a small phone fan. I'm sure you are. Like a lot of people in our tech bubble enthusiast world, I feel like there's that desire to see, if not US launch small phones, but just more small phones on a global scale. Right. So from a personal standpoint, obviously I would like to see that, but it is difficult when, like you mentioned before, Asus, they couldn't make the small Zenfone work. And even Apple, they tried the Mini for a few years and that didn't work out because nobody bought it. And it's difficult to see, like, as excited as I am to see the 13T, to see a small 6.3 inch OnePlus phone. Like I said, from a personal standpoint, from what we've seen for the phone, it sounds phenomenal and like something I would very happily daily carry. But given how many companies have tried small phones over the years and how they never seem to be a commercial success, no matter if it's Apple or if it's Asus or whoever it is, like, it is difficult to see a grand launch for that size of phone, especially like you said, when there are other kind of BBK companies that are already have a small option on the market. Like, it feels like from a business perspective, there's not a lot of value in having competing small flagship phones when it really seems like the market doesn't want that as much as I would love to see that.
Right. And I agree with you. But now that we have a teaser from OnePlus about this phone, which is going to be China only, from what we can tell, I love the looks of this thing. It kind of reminds me of the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, the camera pod, but rotated 90 degrees.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
And the colors, of course, the pink is cool. I like a good pink every now and then. And the specs, it looks like a total flagship, right? The only thing I think that they're rumored to be cutting on is the same as the Fine N5, where they're doing the 8 megapixel ultra wide, but it keeps the 3x telephoto 50 megapixel and the 50 megapixel main. So think OnePlus, like the OnePlus we can get here, but shrink it down to 6.3 inches, slab-sided like the OnePlus 13R, give it very little bezels, give it a huge battery, 100 watt charging, 50 watt wireless, all that's good stuff, and then kind of, screw up the ultra wide a little bit just to, keep things on their toes so you can't step on the big guy's toes. That's basically what this, and we get that, guess what? Just like the 8XS series, and we're getting that alert button or whatever it's called that replaces the slider. Wah, wah, wah. So that phone is actually coming soon. So stay tuned. It's coming in China April 24th. So next week we should have some news. I'll keep you posted. Yeah, I want it. I want it bad.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I'm going to talk to Spencer, and I'm sure he's going to say no because it's China only. But I suppose I could ask. Oppo sent me the Ultra. I suppose I could ask for the 8XS, which is this equivalent.
Yeah.
But we'll see. More OnePlus rumors is now, I think the OnePlus 13 line is proliferating rapidly in a weird way, because now we're talking about a OnePlus 13S to come out this summer.
Yeah, this is bizarre.
Which is going to be basically like a decontented even further, but it looks like it's India only. But it might not be as decontented as the 13R. So my head is spinning. What are your thoughts on that?
I always struggle. Like, it's always such a conflicting thing for me, because on the one hand, more choices, more options of phones to choose from is never a bad thing. But at the same time, if you have OnePlus 13 and then the 13R and then the 13T and then the 13S, 13 is obviously the flagship. R is kind of the step down below that. The T we're expecting to be the small version, and it seems like the S would slot in like a mid-range
I really think
spot
you can call the S the India special, because I think in the same way as the OnePlus 13T is China only, right? Like I think those kind of don't count for us so much, but I think that even for Europeans, they won't. I don't think they'll count, because there's also the Nord series. They're coming out. There's also rumors on that. I'm not going to get into it, but like of course there's a Nord coming, a Nord C for Europe, and we haven't seen a Nord N, and I don't think it's going to happen again for a while now. I think OnePlus is really pulling out.
Yeah, it is slightly funny to see like this year where we're getting potentially 13R, 13S, and 13T, where it was just a year or two ago where OnePlus said they wanted to simplify their branding and get away from labeling phones as like a pro phone or something. Like we would just have the 13 or the 12 be our flagship to simplify things. And then this year we're getting potentially 4 variants just of the OnePlus 13. It is and like you said, obviously the S would be more for India, so that wouldn't really have any bearing on US market or US branding, but it is still an interesting.
Well, I think, there's US marketing, which is what we were hearing. And then there is Pete Lau. And Pete Lau has never been a friend of the US market. I mean, I love the guy. I think he's done, clearly he's very successful. Oppo is at the top of their game. If they've ever been at anywhere, they're at the top of their game. They're up there with Xiaomi and Huawei in terms of China, right? Like, but when people think smartphones, they think those 3 brands right now. If you're in anywhere outside of the US, right? And forget, I'm not talking about, I'm eliminating Apple and Samsung on purpose here because they're obviously huge as well. But if you look at the top 5, right? Oppo is always in that somehow, right? So, or Vivo, or, whatever. The point is that I think this is not surprising, because it's a complete, re-strategizing of the entire OnePlus and Oppo brand, right? But at the same time, we should talk about the tariffs, because, the OnePlus 13 watch that I'm strangely not wearing. I'm wearing my Galaxy watch today. I've been wearing it tons. I love it. You've seen it on videos before, folks. It's a great watch. My favorite Android Wear watch right now. That watch is now costing an arm and a leg because of the tariffs. I think it's because of the tariffs, or preemptively because of the tariffs. What's your thought on that? You wrote an article. Tell us. Yeah.
So I'm not wearing it today, but I was wearing the OnePlus Watch 3 for months. And I agree with you. It's my favorite Wear OS watch available right now. Battery life is great. Design's great. Health features are improved. And at that $330 price, it seemed kind of like a no-brainer to me. Like, it was similar in price to a Pixel Watch 3 or a Galaxy Watch 7. And I think there was a really good argument for buying it over both of those. But $500 now for this new price, since it relaunched after they delayed it because of the Made in China typo. Man, as much as I love it, it is really difficult to recommend that now. As good as it still is, if you're talking $500 over $300 to $350 for a Galaxy Watch 7 or a Pixel Watch, it's really disappointing to see. And like OnePlus, they didn't outright say that this was tariff related. They issued a comment to publications just saying that they didn't have further comment at this time, which, it isn't confirming tariffs, but it kind of is. What they aren't saying is there's meaning in that. So it just sucks, because I mean, we don't know how long this is going to last. I'm sure OnePlus itself doesn't know, because the tariff situation is changing constantly. I mean, it was 135%, then it was 145%, and now it may go to 245%. But electronics may be exempt, or they may not be. So ideally, this is maybe just a temporary bump in the road, and the price goes back to $330 in a month or two.
I doubt it.
Yeah, if they're asking people now for $500, and if people are going to continue to buy it, it would be surprising to see that drastic of a price cut effectively when it's now being sold for $500.
Here's the thing you have to understand about tariffs, folks. I think it's not just a matter of like, yes, they're putting tariffs on, and our fascist regime is stupid and they're doing this. That's a fact. And it's affecting us buying products, and maybe electronics. All that is valid. But here's the thing you really have to understand that's really, really critical. There's no going back. Even if the regime decides tomorrow we're no longer fascists and we want to remove the tariffs, we have now destroyed our credibility and our trust with our economic partners worldwide. That means they're never going to trust us ever again to do business with. That means tariffs are going to remain not as tariffs, but they're going to jack us because they're going to be like, I don't know what you're going to do tomorrow. I don't trust you anymore. So we've just deleted 100 years of economic growth by just like giving a big middle finger to everyone. And, as somebody who's a dual citizen Canadian and American, I see this all the time because my Canadian folks up there that are not American citizens, my Canadian citizen colleagues up there in Canada, because I'm in San Francisco today, not in Vancouver, they're like, screw you. You've totally lost our, we hate you now. And I'm like, don't hate us. And I'm like, because I'm kind of caught in the middle. But this is the reality. So I think going back to the cost of the watch, I think, we might see an adjustment, maybe 400, but I don't think we're going to see it go back to the 330. And it also, here's the thing, right? Inflation is happening worldwide. It's not even if you forget the tariffs, this is 2 months have gone by since that watch has been announced, right? And 2 months of insanity economically, but 2 months also of maybe there's a material they can't procure as easily anymore, even with the insanely good supply chains, right?
Sure.
And then the other thing, and I don't want to play devil's advocate, but here's the thing you have to understand. You're comparing this watch to the Pixel Watch 3 and to the Galaxy Watch 7. I don't think that's a fair comparison. I think this is a Galaxy Watch Pro and an Apple Watch Pro comparison that you chat. And you're going to say ruggedness is not there, and I agree. It's definitely more rugged than a Pixel Watch 3, that's for sure. But the battery life is, and the way it's built and the way it feels on your wrist is much more akin to this Galaxy Watch that I'm wearing right now.
Sure.
And I think that is kind of where I'm at with that. I think that in that sense is still cheaper than these Ultra Watch. Now, is it, as bulletproof as them in terms of mil spec and all that? No, but it's close. And I think that battery, now I decided, let's wear this for a week. I'm in San Francisco for a week. Most of my devices are here. I haven't worn a different watch. I want to go back to what does it feel like. And I'm like, this thing is fine. I love it. But the battery life on it, and the charging speeds on it, terrible.
It's not good.
I'm like the OnePlus watch. Once you get used to it, 5 days for me consistently, and this is always on display, turn on. It's incredible. And going back to something that lasts 2 days, 3 days, it's a pain in the butt. And then of course the charging speed, right?
Sure.
So I don't know. I think that in that sense, you can potentially justify buying it for 500 or 400. But 330 was the sweet spot, right? It was
that
so
was
good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And it is, there's certainly that argument that it's cheaper than a Galaxy Watch Ultra or something. But I've got to imagine people that when this was announced at 330 and people saw it at that price, the gut reaction is just this is a Pixel Watch 3 competitor. This is a Galaxy Watch 7 competitor. And you see it as in that range of watches, even though it obviously does some things better than them in terms of design or battery life or whatever. Yeah. And even, as a overall for $500, I still think it's very, very good. And if I bought it for $500, I don't think I would be upset or disappointed in it because it is excellent in almost every regard. But the fact that it was $330 or even $299 when it was open during pre-orders, and in the span of a couple of months, it got a over 50% price hike to $500. I think that's what probably
it's rough.
Stings the most. Even if it is, you could still make the argument that it's worth $500. The fact that
I agree with you.
You could have bought it for $300 during pre-orders back in February. That part stings. And there's really not much OnePlus can do given the tariff situation, and it is very worrying about what this potentially does to the rest of their product line, because there's no way they eat the cost of tariffs for their entire device portfolio just by raising Watch 3 prices. I mean,
no,
there's no confirmation from OnePlus or any indication from the company that they're going to do similar price increases for their phones, tablets, or earbuds, but it's really difficult to see a future where it's just the Watch 3 that goes up in price, and it's not the rest of the devices.
I mean, that's a given. And I mean, it really depends on this electronics tariff, if it actually stays the way it is right now. I mean, it could change in 5 minutes. That's the nature of the beast right now, which is the problem, right? The problem to start with is the tariffs. But then if you're going to have them, the problem is that if you change them every 5 minutes, you
need certainty there.
Exactly. And that's also why the markets are, uncertain right now, because people are like, I don't know what's going on. So anyway, the way I see this is, if you want to save money and you want to get 90% of that experience from the Watch 3, get the Watch 2. It's on sale.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty solid.
If you can live without the rotating crown,
things.
It's still really good.
The titanium bezel is definitely being a lifesaver for me in terms of scratching and damaging the watch. So keep that in mind. And that's kind of why I feel this is very much like an Ultra product, because it's unbreakable.
Oh, yeah.
I've dropped it. I've done all kinds of stupid things with that watch, and it doesn't have a nick on it. It's like as good as when I took it out of the box. It's kind of amazing. Anyway, let's rapid fire through some news. There's a bunch of ex BBK Group products here that I want to quickly go through. The Realme GT7 non-Pro, the GT7 Pro came out. That was one of the very, very, very first that shipped. The first I got in my hands, 8 Elite phone back in, I want to say November, even October. And that phone now has a kind of a sibling, which is the GT7. And that's supposed to be Dimensity 9400 Plus. This phone exists in seemingly, so the reason I put this news item here is it seems to exist in 2 versions now. So the China version because this was going to be China only again, was going to be a Dimensity 9400 Plus. But now we're hearing that there's a global model, potentially, with a 9300 Plus. A generation ago's, I mean, it's still a solid chip. This is a chip that's in the Galaxy Tab S10 Ultra and Pro, right? So it's not right. no slouch. But and so it seems like they're going to have a kind of a similar setup that we've seen on a lot of BBK Group, formerly BBK Group phones, where they make a China version that's slightly different than like the Ace 5, the OnePlus Ace 5 is a OnePlus 13R, but it's slightly different in China. It looks cosmetically the same, but the specs are slightly different. I think this is what we're going to see here. So keep an ear out for that dropping on April 23rd, the day just before the OnePlus 13T. And then the Vivo X200 Ultra is leaked again, of course. And so, now we know the colors and some more specs. And obviously, the trifecta of camera phones that are insane is well known. It's the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, which came out first this year, the Oppo Find X8 Ultra we just spent time talking about, and this phone, which I'll never get because I used to get the Vivos, but they stopped giving me the Vivos after the X80 for some reason, or the X90, I can't remember. But I never got the 100s and the 200s, and I do want them badly. But Vivo keeps sending me the V series, which is their mid-range, which I can't be mad at them. They're very nice. Yeah. The mid-range also have the Zeiss branding. You take really good photos. I think OnePlus 13R kind of thing, or maybe better than that, because it does have, imagine a 13R with Hasselblad processing. That's kind of what the V series are like from Vivo. So, again, keep an ear out for this one. It's coming soon, April 21. So, yeah. And then I want to spend a bit more time on this with you and get your thoughts. Nothing, of course, is coming out with a bunch of new devices through their CMF brand. It's that time of year again. Although last year was more in the summer. But anyway, we're getting some new buds. Those have been officially announced. The CMF Buds 2, which are similar to the CMF Buds 2 Pro in terms of cosmetic, aesthetic look and feel there. Not quite sure, honestly, what the difference is. I get a little lost in the differences between, especially with the Chinese brands. Sorry, I know nothing is London-based, and CMF is in more India market, but hey, let's be real. This is all made in China. and kudos, Carl, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. I'm just saying, these OEMs that are making these earbuds for all these, there are some great ones. Pretty much all the OnePlus buds have been phenomenal. All the Nothing buds have been phenomenal. Even the CMF buds have been great. So these are going to be great. What's the difference exactly? I don't know. All I can tell you is that it's India. It's coming soon. We've got some specs here, and do we have pricing? That's the thing I'm not sure, but I don't think we have pricing yet.
Looks like $59.
Oh yeah, $59. So maybe it'll even come to the US. You can buy the previous ones in the US. So I think through Amazon. But here's the thing. The more important thing, and I'm very excited about this because last year's CMF Phone 1, let's all agree, was the best $200 phone we've ever used, ever. All of us, right?
I didn't get a chance to use it.
Oh my God.
I'm very jealous. When I was at Digital Trends, I edited our review for it. Andy reviewed it for the site.
Oh, Andy Boxall, yeah.
And I was very jealous reading his review because how as cheap as that thing was for not just the specs, but just the software and the build quality and stuff. It seemed unreal, everything they packed into that phone for that cheap of a price.
Back in the day, I used to joke, I don't know if you heard the podcast at Engadget like a decade and a half ago when I was doing it, but I used to joke around about the apocalypse phone, the phone that you would take with you that would be like the only thing you needed, right? Like not necessarily the strongest or best, but the thing that, everything's out of control, like kind of like the tariffs right now. I mean, you can't afford anything. Apocalypse phone. And back then there was a Motorola bar phone, like just a dumb phone that had an e-paper display, like, where it stays, the display stays on all the time. So it had a 1 month battery life, dumb phone, just could do phone calls, texting with a T9 keyboard and like alarms and stuff. And that used to be the Apocalypse phone. Super lightweight, works on anything, any network. I kind of feel like the CMF Phone 1 is that modern version on a smartphone because it also has interchangeable back. So if you drop it, you don't even need a case. You just change the entire shell with a new one, right? For $20 and you're back in business unless you break the display. Well, but the point is, it does everything. The only thing it was missing for me to give it like literally a 4.9 out of 5 was NFC for Google Pay. But it's India. So
it didn't have NFC.
It didn't have that. But everything else, even the camera without OIS was perfectly serviceable. Only a single camera. The second one is just the depth sensor or something.
Right.
But here's the thing. This is now, we know the CMF Phone 2 Pro is coming and they keep teasing it. April 28th. And like the buds. And the thing is, that thing is supposed to have a telephoto in addition to the main sensor.
Yeah, that's super impressive.
Like last year, the Dimensity 7300 is back, but this time it's a Pro version, which we've never heard of. So basically, they asked MediaTek to kind of tweak a Dimensity 7300 for them for this phone, which is totally fine. They've done that before. In fact, I think Nothing does this all the time. There was a special version of for the Phone 1, the very first phone from Nothing, there was a special version of a Snapdragon 7 something, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this is not unusual. I think it's got a better NPU is basically all it is. But yeah, it's coming. I'm hoping to get my hands on one. I've requested a device because I'm a big enthusiast of affordable phones. So stay tuned. But anyway, this thing is bonkers. What are your general thoughts on adding a telephoto to this price point?
It's one of those things that, I mean, it feels like it could go either way. It could be
you've played with these Phone 3A Pro, right? That telephoto is super, super good.
I've not had a chance to use that one yet either.
Oh, it's solid. I mean, the Phone 3A non-Pro has probably a more pedestrian telephoto, but they added Pro to this, so I assume that they're not going to sacrifice the performance.
Yeah, it's probably something similar-ish in quality to the whatever telephoto sensor is on the 3A Pro, or maybe a little bit lesser. No, I mean, if they can include a telephoto sensor and keep the price around that $200-ish range, I mean, it's really difficult to complain about that combination at all.
I think that it's just going to be a 2X, non-stabilized, like kind of what's in the back of some, like the OnePlus 13R, right? Like that kind. I don't think we're going to need a periscope here. No,
but it's still, I mean, more versatility, more functionality.
But I think for portraits or whatever, I think it's going to be good. I don't know, maybe also throw in like an 8 megapixel ultra wide for good measure. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe that's the thing. Maybe the Pro has the ultra wide. I don't know. I'm really excited to see also what they do with industrial design. Clearly, the specs are going to remain very much the same. They could use last year's display. It was 1080p, 120 hertz OLED. It was perfectly serviceable. I think it was 2000 nits. Like, it was quiet. It was fine. Everything else was fine. Speakers were fine. But if they add NFC, that might become my apocalypse.
Yeah, that would be nice. I didn't realize the first one was missing that. But it's hard to see that if you just throw in NFC, which I cannot imagine is an expensive.
Well, the problem is that price point, your margins are so thin that anything, makes a difference. So, and if the market is that you're targeting, in this case, India, doesn't care about NFC, why bother? Like, I get it.
Yeah,
like,
that's a fair point.
I mean, at $300, I start complaining. But at $200, and also, with tariffs and stuff, I mean, not just tariffs, but the general economy being in shambles worldwide right now, who knows? I don't think that price is going to remain either. Like, I don't think $200 is feasible. And that's also why the Phone 1 is going to be, the CMF Phone 1 is going to be, it's going to go in the history books, because I think it's kind of like the original Poco phone, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever had that phone, but like, it was just insane. And the price was absolutely insane. And again, it cut some corners, but they were perfectly acceptable for what we were getting. So, all right. So RedMagic 10 Air, what are your thoughts on that one? That's finally been announced. It's basically a RedMagic 10, slimmer, thinner, without the fan, but with, get this, a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. So it's a RedMagic 9 Pro without the fan that's thinner.
Yeah. No, I mean, the RedMagic phones, like, I've not used one of those in a while. Like, for whatever publications I've been at, it would always be other folks reviewing those ones.
Right.
But, I mean, on paper and, like, in the way the phones are received in reviews and stuff, they always seem pretty solid across the board. As someone who is all for the thinner, lighter, more ergonomic phones, I'm totally fine with the slimmer, thinner, more ergonomic design. And the 8 Gen 3, I mean, it's an older chip, but I find it
it's gonna be
difficult
fine
to complain about that in 2025. It's still really, really performant for basically everything.
The thing you have to realize, though, this is going to be the same display as this Nubia and as the RedMagic 10 Pro, right? So it's a big phone, 6.8 inches, under display, front-facing selfie cam. Basically, they just made it thinner by removing the fan, and cheaper by putting an 8 Gen 3 in there. And so, I mean, it's going to be great.
Which seems fine. I mean, the
still has
fan,
the shoulder
I'm sure if you're
buttons
doing
and,
like
thermal
super
management.
intensive gaming,
Yeah.
there's benefit from that. But I mean, not everybody needs that fan component. So if you can remove that, make it a little
make
more
it an
comfortable.
accessory like ROG phone does. Right.
But no, it looks solid. 8 Gen 3, thinner design.
This is China only for now, but RedMagic has a habit of launching globally right after. So 476 in China, that's going to probably translate to about 5. Well, I mean, who knows with tariffs now, but in normal world, it would translate to about 500 US, which is reasonable because I think you can get the 10 Pro for, I want to say 700. So the 10 Pro is 8 Elite and has a fan. It's thicker, but it's a great phone. If you like to game, you get all the goodness. But the biggest issue with these RedMagic phones is the software doesn't really get updated. Same with this Nubia phone, right? Also, no wireless charging on this flagship. This is not a gaming phone. It should have wireless charging. And no, you don't get wireless charging, which is a bit of a bummer. It does have fast wired charging, though. The next one we have that's also a new product is Honor Power. So Honor has made a phone with an 8,000 milliamp hour battery. And wait, it's not thick. So silicon carbon,
specification.
Right? It's insane, isn't it? What do you think?
I mean, I'm all for it. I think what we're seeing with the silicon carbide battery tech, right?
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's one of the more exciting things we've seen in the last few years for smartphone tech, just because I mean, we clamor for bigger batteries, better battery life, and that used to have to translate to thicker, bigger phones. So the fact that we're at a point where Honor can put 8,000 milliamp hours, which feels like a made up ridiculous
insane.
number, into it's under 8 millimeters thick. Like, that's unbelievable.
But they were the first to do silicon carbon, so they're probably leading in that field, right? So, this is a mid-range phone. The only thing it really has going for it that makes it really incredible is the thickness and the battery size. But I think this is the direction we're going. I'm going to talk about another phone in a minute that has a 7,000 milliamp hour battery. So, insane.
Love to see it.
Yeah, I think it's, which phone was I looking at? I don't think I have it on my list, but there is a phone right now, another Chinese mid-ranger with a 7,000 milliamp hour. This is a trend. It's going to be, we're going to see more and more of this.
And it's funny because, I mean, a few years ago, like, you'd be at CES or MWC and you'd see phones with 10,000 milliamp hour batteries, and they'd be those gigantic brick-like things.
Oh my God, yeah,
like
1 inch
Duracell
thick.
or whatever.
I know, yeah.
So it's ridiculous. We're 8,000 milliamp hours in a normal phone body. The amount that's changed, that new battery tech is really, really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's skip to some Moto news because you wrote about the G Stylus. I just got it in the mail like 2 days ago. It's still in a box over there behind me. For those of you watching on video, I'm sorry I can't show it to you. But here's the good news. It looks pretty nice, like all the current Motos. I've got the G Power from this year that, it's got that vegan leather back. Of course, it's all plastic, the rest of it and stuff. But I like the industrial design they've been going for. Like even their cheap phones, cheap-ish, feel nice and look good. You wrote about this announcement. What's the takeaway? What should we know about the G Stylus for 2025?
So, I mean, just it looks fantastic to me. I mean, it's essentially the G Stylus 2024, but fairly significantly better in a few ways. Same vegan leather backside, which I've been a big fan of.
Me too.
Do miss the bright red color that was available for last year's phone, but the bright blue that we've got for the 2025 model looks good. Display upgrades look good. I thought the 2024
1220. Jesus, like how much is this phone?
$399.
Okay, and this is a US market phone. Like I think Moto's really pushing the envelope. Like 2 years ago, you were getting an LCD at 120 hertz from them for this phone.
Yeah, OLED 2712 by 1220. Brightness, peak brightness is...
Wow.
I forget the exact number. But
Doesn't
it's
matter.
IP68. It's 68 watt wired charging, 5,000 milliamp hour battery. And honestly, I mean, when I used the G Stylus 2024 last year, the cameras were not the best in the world, but I got some shots of it that I was fairly happy with. I mean, there's limitations with low light and different scenes it's capable of, but perfectly capable cameras for that price, and the sensors in the 2025 model are slightly upgraded too.
You still have OIS, right? They didn't remove that.
I believe OIS
on
is
the
still
main
there.
sensor. Yeah. Good. They've been doing that. I'm really happy Moto's been doing that on all their phones, like pretty much. And they don't, same with wireless charging. They have putting that on their cheaper phones. Yeah. Finally got NFC on the G series now everywhere.
After years of complaining.
Oh my God, we complained so much about that. No, this is starting to look to me at this price point, as you said in your story, like a 9A competitor, or better yet, like a Chinese not mid-range, but budget phone competitor for maybe $100 more because America. Sure. But man, if they can keep this price in this current economy, like, and on top of that, you get a stylus. That to me, I would never use it. But if you don't need it and you still want a decent phone, there you go. And then if you do love the stylus and you can't afford a Note or don't want to go for a the Ultra. My God, I'm back 5 years ago here. Then you're all set, right? Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and like the biggest hang-up, which has been the biggest hang-up for budget Motorola phones forever, is the software update situation. I think they've said the G Stylus is, I think 2 years of Android OS upgrades and then 3 years of semi-monthly security patches, which is...
Yeah.
It's not great, but I mean, outside of people like us... People going into their Verizon store or buying this on whatever prepaid carrier. Yeah, that's not going to matter. So, right. I mean, Pixel 9a still looks very good. I've not had a chance to use it yet, but like that still looks like a really solid phone for $499. But it's really impressive how comparable this G Stylus looks to that in some ways, and how just better than the 9a it is, between presumably battery life, just because the G Stylus last year was a 2-day phone for me easily, which I don't know your experience with the 9A battery life, but I've got to imagine this is probably better. I think
my 9A review is on Hot Hardware, but it's, I feel like we talked about it last week. I think the battery life was solid, but it didn't seem to be particularly like mind-blowing for me in terms of like the size of the battery, the label on it, right? Like, I was expecting maybe a little more, but I think it has the old modem too, which I think kind of screws it up a little bit. But anyway, look, I think this stylus is it's the first time I feel like, okay, the pricing is pretty competitive right now for what you're getting on paper. And the Moto software is always delightful. But speaking of which, next week, we will be getting the razors, right? This is now official.
Cannot wait for those.
We have a date, the 24th. Stay tuned. We will be there and we will report back next week. My good friend, Mr. Michael Fisher, will be my guest on the show. Essentially, I'm going to intercept him right after we get our dirty little hands on those phones. And we're going to spend a good time of the show talking about them because we love ourselves a razor.
Oh, yeah.
So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. And the leaks we've seen with the wooden backside, potentially, I cannot wait for that. It's taking me back to the Moto X days in the best way possible.
Oh, so good. I'm or the OnePlus bamboo cases, whatever. Yeah. I'm very much into it. I still think, honestly, you can't go wrong with the Z Flip. Like, it's solid, and Samsung has a ton of expertise making very durable phones. But I think Moto is fine. My spouse is using a 2023 Razr Plus, and they haven't broken it yet, and they're not, they have a case on it, but they're not like the most careful person in the world. They don't care. They're like a normal human.
Sure.
And they had more problems with their Z Flip, which was a 3, so it was a long time ago. But like, I think that Moto's got that I wouldn't say reliability, but durability sorted now. Reliability has never been an issue for them.
The hinge on the 2024 Razr was significantly better than the 2023.
And the best part is that you get great software, and I think design-wise they're nailing it. Like with the whole Pantone stuff, and like everything is so much nicer than the Z Flip, especially now today, because who knows what the next Z Flip is going to do. Rumors are it's going to be full screen in the front, but right now it's not full screen in the front. It looks pretty frumpy in comparison, right?
And the panel itself is significantly lower quality than the Razr. Plus, I mean, I know you with good lock you can not hack it, but you can modify it to run any app. But it's such a pain in the butt to get through that. The software Motorola has for their cover screen is fantastic.
Absolutely. And
like, given the choice between the Flip 6 last year and the Razr Plus, like, I would go for the Razr Plus every time. So that's my flip phone of choice.
I'm 100% on board with you.
Very excited for the new version.
We should wrap up. Joe, want to tell people where they can find you on the internet, where you're right now, because things have changed, and also your handles on social and stuff.
Yeah, right now I am writing for Android Authority, doing a lot of opinion pieces, features of just any hot takes or opinions I have on current devices and stuff. So that's where my writing's at. I've on Twitter, Blue Sky Threads, it's all at Joe Maring1. I've not been active on those. I've been horrible about my active social media presence. So trying to get better at that. But I mean, almost daily, there's something for me on Android Authority with some new piece out. So that's where I'm at. Fun stuff.
Awesome. Check it out, folks. Check out Joe's awesome writing on Android Authority and follow him on the social media, even though I understand mental health is a good thing and social media. I'm only there to post about the podcast and answer comments. I don't even read the rest of it anymore.
It's a rough place to be on Twitter or any social site these days.
It's pretty crazy. Folks, you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankrl. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character. Just drop the vowels and you'll get my handle on pretty much everything. I'm primarily on Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky, but I'm on all the platforms. So, you want to reach out to me there, comment about the podcast and all that, please do so. Also, the podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. That's the URL for the show. But of course, we're on all the major platforms, all the major podcasting apps. So just find me on Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple Podcasts. And then, of course, the YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast with the occasional monthly or so video. So if you want to see some visual content that's free, check out my YouTube. And you know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment, all that good stuff. Finally, there's an opportunity to support me if you want with Patreon, patreon.com/TNKGRL, like my handle on social. And there you'll find a video version of this podcast. And for $5 a month, every week, you get a video version a day in advance. So you can listen to the audio in the background while you're working or whatever on Patreon and get the podcast before everyone else. Or you can see us brandish phones, compare things, our faces, all that stuff. Sometimes I leave some extra content and bloopers if we go over time. So check it out. If you want to support me, patreon.com/tankgirl. I'd appreciate you looking at that. And I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. You know I review a lot of phones, so I'm constantly juggling multiple devices. While that's fun, it also means I'm spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. Thankfully, there's Mint Mobile, and that's who I'm teaming up with for today's podcast. If you want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. You've probably seen the Mint Mobile ads featuring Ryan Reynolds, but let me quickly tell you how fantastic their service is, especially for tech-savvy early adopters like us. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current devices and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. The whole process only takes 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, Mint has a great customer service team to get you through it. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning-fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link, mintmobile.com/mobiletech, to get premium wireless starting at $15 a month. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And Joe, thanks for being my guest. I really appreciate you coming back on the show.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We'll have to not take a 3 or 4 year break in between appearances.
Has it really
next
been?
time.
I think it's been 3 years. We need to fix that.
I think
for
so,
sure.
yeah.
For sure. So, folks, stay tuned. I'll have Joe on again for sure, and I'll have another podcast next week with Mr. Michael Fisher. Until then, cheers, everybody.
Bye.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.